to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
What about Tio Female?
Tio scared of me. He said he'll never fight me. Tell him stop being scared.
Congratulations.
Stevenson beats Lopez.
Yes.
Stevenson beats him, takes him to school.
Easy.
It's an easy fight for Shakur Stevenson, whether you like him or not, his personality outside of the ring or how he fights inside of the ring. Though how he fights inside of the ring, that's what wins him the fight, because he's economic, defensively responsible, throwing only 1 or 2 punches at a time. I think he happens to be a little bit taller and a little bit longer than Teofimo,
while being lighter on his feet.
The style.
Shakur Stevenson is much better moving lateral or on his back foot than Teofimo is on his front foot. And in this fight, he'd get on his front foot. He'd have to try to close the distance on Shakur, who's going to pick him off 1 punch at a time.
2 at the most.
Long range, long distance from a safe distance, and we all know he can fight that fight all night. He can fight that fight for the full 36 minutes. No, I do not think Shakur knocks out Teofimo, but I do think he wins wide and takes him to school.
Pure boxer versus the boxer puncher favors the pure boxer, even though stylistically, it doesn't always make for the best TV fight. Shakur Stevenson would do to Teofimo Lopez what Devin Haney did to Regis Prograis, because stylistically, that's the same fight.
Based on styles, it's the same.
Though because they're both young and relatively well-known, that's what would sell it, a Stevenson versus Lopez fight. Now, Shakur Stevenson is willing to have that fight, but Teofimo isn't. Underneath it all, he knows why.
Scared.
You'd be lost in the sauce with Shakur Stevenson. You were lost in the sauce with George Kambosos, with Sandor Martin.
Confused.
Many times I gotta tell you, Teofimo Lopez at his best, at his very best, is hanging back, shifting his weight onto his back foot, and setting traps, setting up counter shots to walk the opponent into those shots, land, then move in. But if he has to chase the guy,
He's not as good.
he knows he isn't. And that's why he's not receptive to this fight. Now think about it. How could the same guy who just found time to fight a nobody in Steve Claggett,
These are nobodies compared to Shakur Stevenson. That if you had time to fight Steve Claggett, Jermaine Ortiz, and Sandor Martin, well, Shakur's a bigger name than all of those guys. More people know Shakur than they know them, and you fought them. You didn't have a problem fighting them, but you have a problem fighting Shakur.
Why?
Which would make for a bigger fight and a bigger bag.
what, because he's gonna run? You say he's gonna run? So catch him.
Cut the ring off. Don't you know how to cut the ring off?
He doesn't. We saw that in the Sandor Martin fight. We saw that in the Jermaine Ortiz fight, that he couldn't catch up to the guy, keep on him, and pin him down to unload. That if he has to chase the guy, he struggles, and he's open to be hit coming in.
It's tailor-made for Shakur.
Now, everybody doesn't like Shakur right now because he's been getting into arguments with everybody online since last week over how he looked. That the fight was not that exciting.
And it wasn't.
But if you're asking me, who do I think would win between Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo? Shakur all day. 7 days out of 7.
Teofimo is scared.
You expect the boxing community at large to believe that you want to fight Terrence Crawford. You expect Terrence Crawford to give you the time of day when you won't give Shakur the time of day. A fight between you and Shakur is more feasible than a fight between you and Terrence because Terrence is busy.
He's at 154.
Secure Shakur is a free agent.
He's not busy. If you want some problems, he'll give you some problems. But you don't want no problems.
You don't want no smoke.
Scared.
Teofimo's all right, but he's looked human on more than one occasion against lesser fighters than Shakur Stevenson. That's an easy pick, because he can fight a better version, a better and more complete version of the fight than Jermaine fought, than Sandor fought, and beat Teofimo easy.
Teofimo's too basic for Shakur.
Too simple, he ain't got the right base style or the right level of physicality. Waiting for that window, that moment to let go of a hard counter so that you can move in and unload. You won't get that window against an economic potshotter, an outboxer, an outside fighter. You won't!
Hey, what's a bigger win? You over Loma or him over Spence?
Me over Loma.
Why?
Why? Because when he fought Spence, Spence was at his end. When I fought Loma, I fought him at his best. Top tier, pound for pound, number 1.
You agree with that? No. I didn't have Vasyl Lomachenko pound for pound number 1. Quite honestly, I've never had Vasyl Lomachenko ranked that high. And you can go back to the very first Ring IQ pound for pound list I ever published on Instagram. What you'll notice is I never had him ranked that high. You take his shots at Loma? No, I mean, I've had Vasyl Lomachenko in the top 5, just not at number 1. And I think if you ask around, you might find quite a few people that didn't have him placed there when Teofimo fought him. You're saying that you beat the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter. He wasn't number 1 unanimously. And if the anchor for your argument is that because he was number 1 pound-for-pound, your win over him is better than Crawford's win over Spence, well, that's a tenuous argument to make because not everybody rated him that highly. Moreover, you didn't do to Vasyl Lomachenko what he did to Errol Spence. He beat him within an inch of his life. You won a decision. He annihilated Errol Spence and forced a referee stoppage. You won a decision. Maybe on paper, Vasyl Lomachenko is a better win for Teofimo Lopez than Errol Spence is for Crawford because Vasyl Lomachenko was a more decorated fighter than Errol Spence. Yeah, on paper. But there's more to boxing than what you see on paper, and you're saying this to imply what? What? That you're a better fighter than Terence Crawford. Nobody believes that. Or almost nobody. If you made that fight and you asked around who's going to win that thing, you know what most people would say. Hell, you can conduct an independent poll right now as to who most people think would win that fight, and you know what the result would be. You can ask them who the better fighter is. You can do that yourself. You can do that right now. You don't have to wait for me or some other media outlet to conduct an independent poll as to who people think the better fighter is. Terence Crawford or Teofimo Lopez. Do it.
How do you, overcome not having the long arms like guys like him and Floyd did, though, jumping up from 30 and 35?
Pacquiao did it. Floyd did it. Guys, freaking Neil Park. Duran did it. Napoleon did it.
Broner did it. He jumped up 2
But I'm just saying, like, it's not about that. It's about how you dissect it, how you are able to range it. Guys with long arms, it takes them a longer time to bring it back. So in those moments when they're trying to bring those punches back, you got your moment to take advantage of it. Look, I fought Josh Taylor, long-ass arms.
Josh Taylor doesn't have long arms, and he never did. That's why he's prone to fighting mid-range to inside, where his shorter arms would service him best. And he's hardly a parallel for Terence Crawford and what his wingspan is.
Josh was tall. Yeah, he was tall. He's a tall guy, but he doesn't have long arms.
Terence Crawford, not as tall as Josh Taylor, but he does have longer arms, longer than Josh Taylor. So what you did with Josh is really not a parallel for what would happen with Terence.
I took advantage of that.
Right.
So, and Crawford is very wide. Y'all don't see it. Oh. Yeah, y'all don't see it.
I don't.
You know what I did see? I saw you struggle with smaller fighters that have shorter arms than Terence Crawford, like Sandor Martin, like Steve Claggett.
George Kimbosos.
Shorter guys with shorter arms, 2 of which put you on your ass.
Both, no, you mean with your shots are more compact, they're shorter.
It's not even that. It's just the way Crawford's always been long and lanky.
You're tighter, like when you hit Richard Coleman between the
Just everything. It's faster, it's crispier, it's straight shots.
But not so much faster, and not so much crispier that you could knock out George Kambosos. No, you didn't knock him out. He beat you. Sandor Martin.
You didn't knock him out.
Jermaine Ortiz.
You didn't knock him out.
Steve Claggett, a club fighter. He didn't run from you. He didn't make you chase him. He stood in front of you the whole night, the whole fight.
You didn't knock him out.
Let's get something straight here.
Listen.
You didn't come here to see what Teofimo told Fight Hub or anybody. You didn't come here for that, because if it was just about that, you could have saw that at Fight Hub. You got the quotes from somebody else. No, you came here because you want to know what I think.
You like to pretend that you don't, but that's why you're here.
Because what I think matters to you.
Comprendo, friendo.
Whenever Teofimo Lopez says something stupid, well, you can get the stupid quote from anywhere, any place. You ain't got to come here for that. You came here because you want to know what I think. And if you want to know what I think, and you're here, so I'll assume that you do.
He's clout chasing Terence Crawford because to a lot of people, Terence Crawford is pound for pound number 1. Not to everyone, but to some.
It's not just that he's pound for pound, but he's the only guy that's close to where Teofimo campaigns. That's important, because he'd look like an idiot calling out Naoya Inoue, who's all the way down there at 122 while he's at 140. You can't clout chase him. You can't call him out. You'll just make yourself look stupid.
Can't call out Usyk.
You are 5'7" if you ain't 5'8". You can't call out Usyk. He's all the way up there at heavyweight. And what would you expect us to believe? That you're gonna move up there to fight him, or meet him in the middle at a catch weight?
You can't clout chase him either. Name drop him either.
You clout chase Crawford because he's closer to where you campaign than they are, and you know that a lot of people respect him, and a lot of people view him as the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the sport, or number two, maybe number three, but you know
he's viewed as one of the very best fighters in the sport, so that's why you want to ride his wave after you stink out the joint with Steve Claggett.
I don't find Teofimo Lopez amusing. His hijinks rambunctious.
Sounds like an idiot.
Anybody endorsing the stuff he says, they're idiots too. Because this guy looked bad with Cambosos, then again with Martin, then again with Jermaine Ortiz, and he looked bang average with Steve Claggett in his last fight. That you expect me to believe he's got anything for Crawford?
You must be on drugs like his father.
You would have to be, and this is not amusing. You should be talking about unifying your own division, where you campaign, because nobody believes you.
You sound like an idiot.
And so Teofimo Lopez is now suggesting that Brian Norman Jr. at welterweight is next. He's not even going to try to unify this division with either Alberto Puello or Isaac Cruz or Liam Barro.
Maybe it's too political.
Maybe. I mean, Isaac and Alberto, they're at the PBC. Liam Barro, he's at Matchroom, and we all know Teofimo don't like Matchroom. On that presupposition, Teofimo Lopez Jr.'s days as a junior welterweight appear to be numbered. Lopez, a 140-pound WBO champion, could soon be bringing his quote-unquote takeover mantra to the welterweight division. He revealed on Saturday, 147 is something I plan on moving toward. Probably even this next upcoming match, Lopez told ESPN's Mark Kriegel.
So how many fights has he had as a 140-pounder?
About 5. Roughly, round 5. He fought Gumpas, he fought Martin, he fought Taylor, he fought Ortiz, and he fought Steve Claggett. It's about 5 fights. In 3 out of the 5, he didn't look so hot.
Nope.
He didn't look too hot.
No, he didn't.
Lopez obliged when Kriegel asked if he'd fight WBO interim welterweight title holder Brian Norman Jr. in September at the Madison Square Garden in New York. Listen, I believe what really sounds swell is Teofimo Lopez, 3-division world champion at 27 years young. I'm all about that, he said. Over the last year, Lopez has strongly hinted at retirement, but the 26-year-old New York native emphasized that those feelings were nothing more than a publicity stunt.
Gee, that's what I said at the time.
I remember I previously expressed that I don't want to do this anymore. I don't need to. I felt that I had accomplished everything, said Lopez. I lost a little fire at the moment.
Lopez is hardly the poster child for calm and cool reserve or stoicism. He's the emotional type. He's an emotional guy.
That's why he's so annoying and so temperamental, why he says so many stupid things that are in opposition of each other.
He's not the only one. There are lots of fighters with this personality type, this personality profile, and maybe it's necessary, at least for some guys, to be a fighter and be in this racket.
To be that way with some mixed results, mixed success, that doesn't make them any less annoying. But Lopez stated, I remember I previously expressed that I don't want to do this anymore. I don't need to. I felt that I had accomplished everything. I lost a little fire at that moment, talking about retirement, especially after coming off the phenomenal win against Josh Taylor. I still have the hunger for the game. I still have the love for the sport. And that's the main and important part.
That's what he's saying today. Knowing this guy, it might sound different tomorrow.
Lopez is coming off a unanimous decision win against Steve Claggett on June 29th last month. The fight marked Lopez's 5th as a junior welterweight since 2022, and the last 4 fights have gone the distance. I believe I still have the power, said Lopez. I'm still maturing as time goes as far as power. It's more so of IQ and EQ when you're in the ring. That's really where I'm trying to progress now. I've allowed Hall of Fame top-ranked matchmakers Bruce Trempler and Brad Goodman to make my career. Norman is also promoted by Top Rank and is coming off a 10-round demolition of Giovanni Santillán. Top Rank's Rust at 147 pounds is weak. And Lopez would be a sensible opponent, especially once the WBO fully elevates Norman to full champion, an honor that still belongs to Terence Crawford, who's on his way to 154. As the current 140-pound WBO champion, Lopez can jump up to 147 and immediately challenge for the title, per the sanctioning body rules. Norman is interested in the opportunity to fight Lopez. It would be easy to make, Norman told Boxing Scene this week. If Lopez wants to come to 147, I will gladly introduce him to the division. Anything is possible. We have seen what he did in the past. trying to be great at a young age. It could happen, but business is still business, so maybe it won't happen.
I have my reservations about that fight.
You know, the more you move up in weight, the more advantages you tend to lose. So, if you were a puncher at 135, you may not be that big a puncher at 140, at 147, against naturally bigger guys that are already acclimatized to those weights, and that's the situation I see here between Brian Norman and Teofimo, who would be moving up. You will notice that Teofimo hasn't really knocked anybody out in a long time. The last 4 guys that he fought, he couldn't knock them out. Now, you can give him grace for not knocking out Josh Taylor. You can give him grace for not knocking out Sandor Martin or Jermaine Ortiz. But Steve Claggett, that guy's been knocked out before, and let's be honest, I ain't got nothing against that guy, but he's a club fighter.
He ain't world level. He stood in front of you all night for 36 minutes, and you couldn't stop him.
So what do you think Brian Norman's gonna do? Brian Norman, who's bigger than Steve Claggett, bigger than you, stronger too. You see what he did to Giovanni?
What's he gonna do to you?
It really does take a unique blend of skill set, ring IQ, and some physicality, having the right physical dimensions to continually move up in weight and stay in character. No, not everybody has it.
Timing matters too.
When do you move up in weight? How long were you at a given weight? How much time did you spend there? How much of that time was spent killing yourself to make the weight? And did you lose something as a result? Something that you can't get back. Being honest with you, Teofimo wasn't that big, 140 pounder. He's gonna be even smaller at 147. And I can't trust that he beats Brian Norman. He has the right base style for the job.
He's a boxer, puncher, counter puncher.
Where Brian Norman is a statuesque, long and limber, mid-range to inside fighter. I don't think Teofimo is going to have to chase him.
I don't think Brian is gonna run. I think Brian, knowing that he's big and young and strong, he's gonna take it to Teofimo the way Steve Claggett took it to Teofimo.
I don't want to overstate the role of power in a boxing match. Depending on the boxers and what their characteristics are, what their base styles are, and how they move, how they fight, it all depends. But for Teofimo, yes, it matters.
Yes.
Because you're already economic within a round. You rely on hard counters to get respect, then move in. So what if you can't get Brian's respect? What if you can't keep him off?
I don't think you want to hang back on the ropes while this guy unloads. This is not Steve Claggett.
And Steve did get through with some punches. After the fight, you saw Teofimo's face was marked up. If he can touch you, then so can Brian.
But it'll be worse.
I don't mind that fight. It's intriguing. Teofimo is more experienced at a higher level, but at a lower weight.
Against smaller fighters.
And he didn't do so much at 140 or looked so impressive so often that this isn't a dangerous fight. No, it is. It's a dangerous fight.